せーのでもそんなんじゃダメもうそんなんじゃほら心は進化するよもっともっと
What's cooking, everyone? Today I'll be showing you the full art of how to make dumplings from scratch. And it is the Lunar New Year right now, so it's the perfect time to learn how to make dumplings. But honestly, when is there not a good time to eat dumplings? You know what I mean? This recipe, along with all of the techniques that I'm going to show you, are all passed down generations of the Balbe family, so you know you're about to get some truly authentic and delicious stuff. So the first thing we're doing here is prepping the dough by mixing some water, flour, and salt. And of course, the water always comes in increments when you're making dough, just because the perfect amount is always in how it feels and not exactly the measurements that you use. So just start kneading away, pushing down and out, and dumpling dough should feel slightly tough, so you should definitely get a good amount of resistance like you see here. And once we get this solid piece, we're going to drizzle on a bit of oil and then again knead away. Once we combine that oil, transfer to a surface and do some true kneading. And this is a big piece, so just take your time, flip the dough over, rotate it, anything you need to combine that water and flour in perfect harmony. After about 8 minutes, ball it up, put it back into the bowl, cover it well, and we're gonna let this rise and rest for 30 minutes. Then back at it again, kneading for another 5 to 8 minutes. And when you're making dough, you usually always go through this process of initial kneading, letting it rest, and then kneading again before its final rest. For this dumpling dough, we're going to shape it up into a flat oval shape, and this will come in handy later on, so just cover that up and let it rest for a significant amount of time while we begin the rest of the prep. Before we begin chopping away, we have some dried shrimp here, and what we're going to do first is rinse this and then just let this soak in hot water for about 30 minutes or until it's ready to use after we finish cutting the rest of the stuff. So let's get into it. First, of course, we got our yummy meats, and we're going to be using ground pork, both lean and fat. So throw that delicious meat in a bowl, and this is going to be our mixing bowl later on, so make sure it's a big boy and then just leave this in the fridge until we need it. So here I have a handful of Chinese celery, which we're just going to dice up quite finely but not too crazy, and just set that aside. Next, we have our aromatics, including some ginger and scallions, and these are going to be minced very finely. Since this will just be used as flavor, you don't really want any large chunks of aromatics while you're eating the dumplings. So just take your time, chop away, mince away, have some fun with it, just enjoy the whole process and art of cooking. And of course, there are many variations and flavors of dumplings that use different ingredients, but when it comes to the aromatics, these two are always staple. Now we got our shrimp, and what we're going to do is clean it real quick by slicing down the spine and taking out any ickiness that's going to ruin our perfect dumplings. We don't want any of that. And then it's time for some smashing. So just smash away and dice away, and this is going to be combined with our ground pork to just create the best combination of meaty goodiness. Now we're going to bring back that bowl of dried shrimp that has just been soaking. We're going to wring it out and mince it, but all of that water inside is going to be straight flavor, so save that for later. We're going to combine that with the rest of our minced aromatics. This is the most versatile part of dumplings, depending on which main flavor you want to embody. So here I'm using some Napa Cabbage, which is amazing in its own right, but of course there are several main flavors of dumplings that you can use instead, including chives, yellow chives, and one of my newfound loves, dill dumplings. So amazing. But this is the more authentic style, so what we're doing is salting the cabbage to draw the moisture out, and then we're gonna actually wring it out inside a cloth to get it as dry as possible, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And now all of our ingredients prepping and cutting is done. And now we're gonna get that bowl of porky yumminess and start mixing everything inside. Beginning with that flavorful shrimp water along with some regular water, and we're gonna need lots of moisture. So once we get that in, we're gonna use a tiger claw technique and start beating the moisture into the meat. Don't forget about the shrimp. Throw that inside and then continue beating away. And this is the most important part about making dumpling filling, because we need to get this moisty, pasty mixture, and this is just going to make for the most tender and juicy dumpling filling. Throw in our irresistible minced aromatics, and then we're gonna spice this up even more. So here we're gonna be using equal parts of some salt, white pepper, and chicken powder, and these are the main dry spices. A tiny touch of sugar just to treat the flavor, and then some true flavor enhancements with some soy sauce, some premium soy sauce, and oyster sauce. Just a touch. And now all of these exquisite spices are just begging to be mixed together, so we're gonna do exactly just that. Once that's well combined, we can throw in the rest of the vegetables. And the reason we do this now is to avoid any excess moisture being drawn out with our intense mixing. So combine lightly. Finally, add a good heaping amount of sesame oil, and this is just going to enhance our fragrance to the max and complete our perfect filling. And I like to transfer it to a smaller bowl just to make everything neat and easier to handle when it's time to create our dumplings. Until then, leave this in the fridge. Now it's time to make our dumpling skin, so get our piece of dough, back out, uncover it, and flatten it out just a bit flatter like this. Nice. We're gonna cut a row from the bottom and work a few pieces at a time, and make sure the dough that's not being used stays covered. We're gonna roll this piece out using our hands, rolling from the center to the outside, making minor adjustments as needed, and we're gonna actually work 2 at a time. So roll them together, making sure they're both as even as possible. Dust some flour on top and do another quick roll. Flatten out the end, and then it's cutting time. We're gonna cut these to, I wanna say, around 1-inch size pieces, maybe a little bit smaller. Just make sure you keep it even. Toss them around, and then with each piece, we're gonna push down right in the center and create an even circle. And you can see how centered that center is, if that makes sense. Since dumplings are always made in large quantities, you'll wanna learn the techniques of how to speed things up, like using 2 hands. Toss them around to avoid sticking to each other, and of course cover up any piece of dough that is not being used. Now with a rolling pin, we're going to roll out each piece of dough into a thin circle, with the center being a little bit thicker to avoid breaking. And bam. If you do this correctly, it should have a little concave shape. Nice. This will definitely take some time, especially if you've never done this before, so you can go at your own pace, but the most important thing to remember is that any piece of dough that is not being used is well covered. Don't forget. Finally, bring out our luscious filling, and it's time to assemble the best dumplings. Put a desirable amount of filling that you want straight inside the center of our dough. So we're going to start by stretching out a little bit of the top and bottom and folding them upwards together. Now give a nice strong pinch to create our first seal. Perfect. The whole idea here is that we want to seal up the dumpling completely from left to right. So the way we do this with speed and technique is to use your index finger and thumb and place them right on the openings, both sides with both hands. And once you get it secure, you're going to pinch hard, pinch downwards while pulling upwards to create a nice concave shape. And you'll get this beautiful, completely secured dumpling. I mean, just look at her. Beautiful from every angle. Electrifying, honestly. And it is Lunar New Year, so one tradition that my family always does is that we put in a peanut or red date inside a fraction of the dumplings that we make. And if you're one of the lucky few that get one of these items in your dumpling, well then, enjoy a blessed year. But regardless of whether or not you get these dumplings still symbolize wealth and fortune, which means no matter what, you're gonna have a blessed year, so just eat away at your heart's content. And by the way, did I mention that this recipe is for 50 to 100 dumplings, so when I say eat away, I really mean it. At this point, you can actually freeze the dumplings and just leave them in the freezer for a significant amount of time and just enjoy dumplings whenever you need. And to cook the dumplings, whenever you want to eat them, it's very easy. All we're gonna do is just boil them in water for about 10 to 15 minutes, obviously a little bit longer if they're frozen. I like to enjoy my dumplings with a sauce made with soy sauce, soy paste, rice vinegar, and some minced garlic. Regardless of what sauce you use, these dumplings are amazing. And if you make these dumplings, I promise you and all your loved ones that you choose to share this with will be so delighted. I love being able to share the tradition and art of Chinese cooking with all of you. So thanks for watching, and I hope you have a truly positive new year. See you later.